Xavier Sala-i-Martin.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senior Economic Advisor, World Economic Forum, Professor Xavier Sala-i-Martin.
Good morning. In 1973, the chief engineer of Motorola, Martin Cooper, gave a press conference at the Hilton in New York City, and he took out of a box, he took something that looked like a brick. He got this brick. This brick had like little keys. He pressed some of the keys. He puts the brick right to his ear, and he says, Joel, I'm calling you from a truly mobile cellular phone. This was the first phone call ever made through a cellular phone. Now, he exaggerated because it really was not really a mobile phone. It was really heavy. It weighed like a kilo. It took about 10 hours to charge, about 20 minutes to discharge. But this started a race. And by the way, Joel was the chief engineer of Bell Labs. Bell Labs and Motorola had been racing to be the first to get the first cellular phone. And with this call, Motorola rubbed the innovation in front of the nose of the competition. Now, ironically, this started a big battle, a big race in the cellular the technology, but the race was neither won by Motorola nor by Bell Labs. It was the initial leader was a tiny Finnish company called Nokia. Even today, 8 of the most sold phones, the best-selling phone ever, 8 of the top 10 are from Nokia. The top 2 are these two, the 1100 and 1110. They sold over 200 million units each. Huge sales. Now, this great success came along with huge amounts of spending in research and development. Nokia led in the spending in research and development in the industry, in the cellular industry, but also across industries, competing in spending in R&D, competing with the car industry, with the pharmaceutical industry. Huge spending in R&D. Now, unfortunately, all of these spending never, didn't help them succeed. The share price of Nokia, that was about 56 in the year 2000, came all the way down to $3 a share when Nokia was purchased in 2013 by Microsoft. Okay, so all of the spending in R&D did not help the leading company in the world survive. Okay, and that's my first message to you. You should not confuse, when you talk about innovation, should not confuse innovation with research and development. Okay, now to further clarify the distinction between research and development and innovation, let me tell you that today we are in a world where this digital revolution that started in the 1970s, 60s, and 70s has evolved into robotics, cloud computing, sensors, networks, big data, digital manufacturing, synthetic biology, digital medicine, nanomaterials, artificial intelligence, on-demand economy, huge amounts of innovation, huge amounts of ideas, huge amounts of changes, and this has triggered all over the world a political reaction, which is, let's spend more in R&D. In order to be in this innovative world, we need to spend more. We need to create technological parks. We need to create technological clusters. But again, innovation is not equal to R&D, and countries that make this, do not understand this distinction will make big mistakes. We at the World Economic Forum, we estimate, we calculate the competitiveness index for all countries in the world, and we pay a lot of attention to this distinction. R&D is not innovation. Now, in order to understand the difference, or to further understand the difference, let me ask you, what do these pictures have in common? Starbucks, Cirque du Soleil, Zara, IKEA, McDonald's. What do they have in common? Well, clearly they are great innovations, right? Nobody can deny that these are great economic business innovations. Second, notice that these are in 5 very traditional sectors, arguably the oldest sectors in the world: food, clothing, furniture, circus, right? Very, very old innovation. And this is my second message to you. Innovation, we should not confuse innovation with high tech, with new sectors. Innovation must occur in every industry, in every country. No matter how old the industry is, innovation must occur. But the key distinction, what I want to highlight is about the key thing that these 5 pictures have in common is that none of these ideas came from research. None of these inventors were really scientists. Cirque du Soleil was a street performer. Starbucks was an English teacher, a history teacher, and a poet. IKEA was a student. Zara was a worker. And the inventor or the creator of McDonald's was a salesperson. None of them was a scientist. In fact, research shows that 72% of business ideas, when you go to business ideas and you say, where do they come from? 72% come from workers. 20% come from regular people that are not workers, that they are not scientists. Street performers, students, poets, teachers, okay? Only 8% of ideas come from R&D, from research and development. And this comes from a book by Amar Bide, which you have here. Hence, innovation is not R&D. What is innovation then? Innovation is just having regular people, teachers, poets, students, workers, regular people coming up with ideas and implementing them. Now, we at the World Economic Forum, we estimate 12 different categories of competitiveness. 10 of them are about implementation, right? Regulation, infrastructures, blah, 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 blah. We know that. You know that, okay? Let me focus on the other 2. Let me focus on the creation of ideas. How do we have an environment, a country, a region, where regular people come up with ideas? How do we do that? Well, let me give you seven keys. 7 keys to having regular people coming up with ideas. Number 1, we should not target university education. We should target primary education, and we should target continuing education. Why do I do that? Well, if ideas came from scientists, right? If ideas came from R&D, then the best education system, the one that yields more innovation, would be one where we select the best students, we put them in top schools, right? In elite schools, where we teach them how to come up with ideas, how to be researchers, and in the meantime, the rest of us can go out and play football and relax while they come up with ideas. And when came up with ideas, they tell us, and we implement them, right? Unfortunately, that's not how innovation works. Innovation comes from regular people. Therefore, what we need to do is to make sure that the regular people, the workers, the students, the poets, end up coming up with ideas. This means focusing our education on the primary level and on the continuing level. After university, people should be able to continue to evolve with the world. That's point number 1. Point number 2, we need to understand the world in which we live. Okay? We need to understand the world in which we live. This is a picture of a classroom that could be in any country in the world today. Regular classroom with regular chairs, regular tables, regular boards. In some classes, even the regular old teachers. Now, if a ancient Greek philosopher came to this classroom, he would fit at home. If Plato came to teach, he would say, oh, this is the same classroom I had when I was in ancient Greece, right? Now, if the same guy goes out of the classroom, he's not gonna understand anything. The rest of the world has changed in dramatic ways. Children using iPhones, he would say, this is crazy, okay? In fact, this is a picture of my niece. I gave my niece, for Christmas, I gave her a book, okay, a regular book. You know what she did? She opened the book and she started pressing the words. Okay? And when she realized that nothing was happening, because in her world, when you press words, stuff happens. So when nothing happened, she decided that I had given her a broken iPad. So she threw it away and got her father's iPhone, and she started playing. How do children know how to use the iPhone? How do they come up with this? Is there intrauterine training for practicing with iPhones? Now, these children live in a different world, okay? And we tend to criticize their world, right? For example, we don't like them playing video games. But you know, the doctors of the future will be performing surgery with robots. And the best doctors in the future will be the ones that play with the PlayStation today. The scientists of the future are the ones that play with the PlayStation. Did you realize that the PlayStation really teaches the scientific method? In order to go, you know, to improve in the game, in order to go to the next screen, there's no instructions. Have you realized there's no instructions? Nobody tell you what to do with a video game. You need to formulate hypotheses, test, fail, do it again, and notice this is a perfect training for the scientific method. And we parents that don't understand this technology, we tell kids to stop doing this and read regular books, which is a big mistake. Right? The world, their world, the world of the future is the one in which we should train them, not the world of the past, the world in which we learn. The world has changed, the education system has to change with it. 3, the key to ideas have two parts, right? Now, one, there is a question, then there is an answer, right? In the education system, traditional education system, we focus on the answers, right? PISA exams. They ask questions, the students have to answer. Science, math, we answer. We teach the students how to answer. But the key to any innovation, the key to any idea is the question, right? The master of the questions is Amancio Ortega, a creator of Zara. When you ask him, you know that you are a great innovator, he says, no, I'm not an innovator. I just ask questions. And I ask two kinds of questions. The first question is, why? I need to understand the world. For example, in his world, the world of fashion, there are two people make clothes twice a year, 2 collections, summer and winter. And he asks why? Well, that's because Christian Dior, who invented pret-a-porter in the 1920s, he decided to do that. No, and he said that's not a satisfactory answer. And when you don't get a right answer when you ask why, then you ask the next question, which is why not? Why don't we do it different? Why, instead of doing twice a year, if you make clothes twice a year, people go to the store twice a year. There's no need to go more times, right? It's going to be the same clothes, right? If you want to bring people more often to the store, let's build a collection every week. And he did that. And therefore, he brought people to his store. The average customer of H&M, which is a competition, goes to the store 3 times a year. The average Zara customer goes to the store 17 times a year. Why? Because every time it's different. He asked why, no correct answer. He asked why not, and he changed the business. He became the 2nd richest man in the world, and he would have been the first had not he divorced, which is another innovation. We should put the question at the top of the education system, and the center of the education system, the center of the classroom. We should not teach kids to ask questions, because they do ask questions when they're kids. The problem is that as they grow, they stop asking questions, right? We should stop preventing them from asking questions. We should encourage them, because this is the heart of innovation. In fact, curiosity is the most important gift we can give our children. These children that are in school today, they will retire in 2080. And between the time they leave school and 2080, the world will change dramatically. And they will need to adapt. And you know what? They will have all the information in the world in their pocket. All the information in their pocket. And there's going to be only one barrier between them and all the information. And that is themselves. They're going to have to go and search it. And the only way that they will induce them to go and search it is to have curiosity, to ask questions. We need to encourage them to ask questions. 4, We need to be observant. We need to teach children to be observant. We need to teach our employees to be observant. You know, the great invention of IKEA is the flat pack, right? All the furniture comes in packs. That means that it's easy, that it's cheap to store, it's cheap to transport, it's cheap to assemble. You shift the assembly cost to the customer. Brilliant idea. Do you know where this idea come from? This didn't come from IKEA. In fact, the owner of IKEA hired a photographer to do a commercial on one of his famous tables. And the photographer decided to take pictures of the table at the forest. Now, he tried to put the table in the car to take it to the forest. He couldn't, so he took off he disassembled the table, he put it in the car, and the engineers of IKEA saw that and he said, wow, they observed. Observation is key. Now, you know what is the best way to teach observation? Art, painting. Have you seen questions about painting in PISA? No, we don't pay attention to art. Art is like a minor thing. It's unimportant, right? We focus a lot on science. We focus a lot on math. We want our children to be scientists. But you know, creative people do art. Observant people do art. Art should be to take again a central role in the process of education. 5, connecting ideas. Ideas usually are connections of other ideas. Ideas meet and mate in order to have new ideas. Cirque du Soleil, right? The circus industry was dying. Until Guy Laliberté came about and decided to merge different types of art. He brought a storyline from theater. He brought the music from Broadway. He brought some of the gymnastics from the Olympics and a little bit of circus, the clowns and so on. And by putting together all of these ideas, he came up with an entirely new genre, which again was very, very successful. Do we teach our students to connect ideas? Like, this is a schedule of any classroom, any school in any country in the world. At the first hour you have algebra, and then you have science, and then you have English, and then you have history, and then you have geography, separate compartments. Okay. Now, new kinds of schools, like the ones that are being implemented today in Finland, they stopped teaching subjects, stopped teaching math, stopped teaching geography. We teach topics. For example, we teach rivers. Today we're going to talk about rivers. And we put all together, all the classrooms and all the teachers, and we're going to focus on rivers by looking at the different aspects of rivers. Okay? We're going to look at the history, look at the economics. This is a picture of the Nile, by the way, from a NASA satellite. You can see the water almost by looking at the lights. Economic activity is related to rivers. History is related to rivers. The Egyptians, biology, physics, geology, you can see the same topic from a very different angles. You will learn how to relate. Why do we need that? Because when it comes to having ideas, you will need to relate. Ideas usually come from merging and mating other ideas. 6, collaboration. We focus a lot on competition. Okay, we focus a lot in competition, especially in schools. You need again to look at the classroom. Look at how the chairs are organized, right? Separate. Everything is separate, and all look at the teacher, right? The superstar of the classroom is the teacher, not the student. Okay, and in fact, if the student turns around and talks with the student, he gets penalized, especially if he does that at the day of the exam. But for the rest of their lives, if they want to be innovative, they're going to have to collaborate. Okay, ideas, when you ask, sociologists have investigated where in the company, where physically in the company ideas take place. At the desk of the CEO? Does the CEO have the ideas? At the research department? No. Turns out ideas occur at the water cooler. Why? Because that's where people talk. That's where people meet. Ideas come from interaction. This is called the Medici effect, right? The Renaissance occurred in Italy because the Medici, the rich family there, brought together all kinds of scientists, poets, philosophers, people of different backgrounds talking together, collaborating. Notice that today's great corporations, very, very creative corporations, this was actually invented by Pixar, have what they call corporate universities, and corporate universities is a place where people of the different parts of the company meet and come up with new ideas, because meeting people, seeing the same company, the same problem from different angles is the way to go forward. Even offices, the way we design offices today without walls. This is an open office of the Desigual headquarters in Barcelona. No walls. People are led to talk, okay, to interact. And finally, my final point is implementation. Ideas that are not implemented are, you remember the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the last scene of the Indiana Jones movie? After getting the Ark, he gives it to the government, and the government puts it in a box and stores it in this big room, okay? This same room is where all the non-implemented ideas end up. Which brings me back to Nokia. Why did Nokia fail? Well, because, in fact, they didn't implement the idea. Nokia, if you look at all of this research, all of the research they had, tons and tons and tons of patents. Now people have gone back to these patent books and they found that they could have invented the iPhone. They had everything they needed to create the iPhone, but they didn't. Now, they didn't implement the ideas that they had. Now, sometimes we don't implement. There's many reasons why we don't implement. Sometimes we don't implement because of government regulations, because of barriers of all kinds. But sometimes, and this is my last message, sometimes the worst enemy of innovation is the firm itself. The reason why they didn't innovate is that they wanted to protect their core business. And the company decided not to implement, not to go to a new market because they were selling 250 million of the old phones. Why would you kill your own market with new kinds of phones, with smartphones? Now they became their own worst enemy, and by protecting the short-term profits, they ended up killing the final business. Thank you very much.